What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another week of Nerding Out with Nick Botteford. I'm your host, Nick Botteford. I am traveling across the country. I'm currently in Virginia. I'm experiencing an allergy attack from all of the whatever that's in the air out here. And this week, getting the rundown done, it is done. It is a doozy. I recommend everybody go check it out. There's a lot of actionable information from week one, but we're going to do our best to cover everything in depth here in a timely manner. So Thursday Night Football wrapped up last night. Go check out our game recaps. I'm sure we've got some stuff spinning on nerdballff.com, or at least on our timeline, Twitter timeline. So yeah, check out the actual information there. One takeaway is JD McKissic is not going away. He owns the passing game, like the pure passing game work. Sorry guys, Antonio Gibson is still going to be a productive, like high-end running back too, but yeah, JDM here to stay. Okay, Sunday, 10 a.m. PST. That's Western. Cincinnati Bengals at Chicago Bears. Joe Burrow looks good. There's still some concerns going on with the knee because it's still recovering, but against the Chicago Bears, he could have like a high-end quarterback too, maybe squeak into the back end of the quarterback one ranks this week. Chicago was really unable to generate a lot of pressure. I think they got one total pressure on Matthew Stafford in Monday Night Football, the Monday Night Football primetime game last week. So yeah, Burrow, he should be able to dish. Jamar Chase, dude looks like he just needed some live action to get rid of the drop team. So he is a wide receiver too every week from here on out. Dude was phenomenal last week against Baltimore. T. Higgins did what I thought he would do. He's severely limited in the athletic department, but he's a very good route runner. I think he will be a proficient number 2 receiver for this team for a very long time. Tyler Boyd, totally flopped. Reasons for redemption this week are just Cooper Kupp. Kupp last week against the Chicago Bears, fellow slot receiver, took 7 of 10 targets for 108 yards and a touchdown. I don't think that Boyd is going to be able to do that, but I think that he might be able to return some kind of flex value. As for the rest of the pass catchers, there really isn't anybody. I still like Thaddeus Moss as a dynasty hold, but there's not a lot going on outside of these guys in Cincinnati, except for Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, he was an absolute monster. And this is kind of what we thought. Like Zach Taylor has shown us in the past that depending on what is going on at the quarterback position, he will alter the way he calls plays. And so they just fed Joe Mixon. They ran the ball a lot early, and they gave him a ton of work in the passing game too. Mixon accounted for 150 of the team's 410 yards from scrimmage, scored one of their 3 touchdowns. He's an absolute beast. And in this matchup, I think he's a top 5 play. Chicago Bears side of things, it's a good matchup, but you can't really trust Andy Dalton for anything more than like mid to low quarterback 2 production. He is god awful. And if anybody was watching the end of the Monday night game and they saw him down at the end of the fourth quarter, throwing failed screen passes, skipping it off the dirt, like I understand that some folks are worried about Justin Fields' development, but how much worse do you think this can get? Anyway, Andy Dalton should be nowhere near a single quarterback starting lineup. Allen Robinson, dude, he flopped. He failed, and that's because of Andy Dalton. He still had 11 targets. So buy low for me right now on Allen Robinson. I think that he's like a flex play at worst this week, but would still expect him to produce as I think wide receiver 2 at worst. I get that that's scary, but trust the process. Darnell Mooney, you can't trust him with Andy Dalton in under center. Cole Kmet, he significantly outsnapped Jimmy Graham 51-14 and out-targeted him 7-2. But again, it's kind of tough with Dalton there. Hold Kmet. Don't drop him. Don't start him. Hold him. He could burst onto the scene if Justin Fields takes over. David Montgomery, I think he's slow. Frank Gore, who was already slow, but fantastic in all facets of the game. I think that Damien Williams got the snap share that he did last week because of the game script. LA got out to an early lead, and Damien Williams, his primary asset as a running back is the passing game usage. I still think David Montgomery is a running back 1 this week. It's going to be a good time. Again, running back 1, he's a top 12 option. Houston Texans at Cleveland Browns. This will be wild because either the Texans are magical or Urban Meyer is the worst coach in the NFL, and he made the Houston Texans look really good last week. I think that that's the one that it is. Tyrod Taylor, his completion percentage above expectation per Next Gen Stats was 0.4%, meaning he's getting exactly what is open. I am not trusting him outside of 2 QB/Superflex leagues. Brandon Cooks, okay, he's here to stay until he isn't, which may be the end of the year. Maybe the guy stays healthy, doesn't, I'm hoping that that's the case. We don't want any more concussions on this guy's record, but he was an absolute beast. A lot tougher coverage by the Cleveland Browns this week, but he can get it. So he hauled in 5 of 7 targets for 132 yards. I think that he can produce if he's going to get that kind of work as a flex play. Nico Collins, just a bench stash. Danny Amendola, I don't even want to talk about this guy, but he's going to dominate the slot reps in like super deep multi-flex leagues, full point PPR scoring. You could find a way to start him. I am not targeting him. Mark Ingram, holy cow, 26 carries, 3.3 yards per carry. So old man Ingram, he got the job done, 85 yards and a touchdown. I think that they're going to be playing from behind this week, so I don't think that Ingram is going to get the same kind of run, but like, I don't know. If you were absolutely desperate for a running back, you could flex him. I will not be targeting him, and I don't want anything to do with Philip Lindsay or David Johnson. On the Brown side of things, this may be what we see at a Baker Mayfield for the year. So he was phenomenal, like great yardage totals. I think he had 1 touchdown. He may just not score a lot because of how strong the play calling is, throwing on early downs and calling a lot of play action. He was a perfect 8 for 8, 150 passing yards whenever they called play action. I think he's a high-end quarterback too. It's a phenomenal matchup, but when they get in scoring position, they may just spread it out wide, as you should when you're in the red zone, and then run it in. I like Mayfield as a top 15 play, but no more than that. Odell Beckham Jr. is out again this week, which is as good as it is bad. We didn't want him to come back. So if you listen to medical professionals, what they say is you don't want to take contact for the first time when you're recovering from an ACL tear in a live game. You don't know how your body's going to respond to it. He doesn't know how. We don't know how he's going to respond to it. So we need him to just get in a full week of practice, take a couple hits, and see how his body holds up. He's not playing again this week, so look for him in practice next week. As a result, Jarvis Landry is on the wide receiver 2 radar. Very high floor guy. He's going to be the number 1 target in this passing game. Tragically, Anthony Schwartz and Donovan Peoples-Jones split time in the downfield role last week. Man. So DPJ, he out-snapped Schwartz 47-31, but he was out-targeted 5-1. It's a real bummer. And neither of these guys are really startable. You could hold one if you think that Beckham is going to be out for the year. And, if one of these guys misses time, then you could slide the other one in, but that's probably not the best use of a roster spot. I would hold both in Dynasty, though. The tight ends, there's just too many of them. Austin Hooper, David Njoku, Harrison Bryant, they're like best ball format only candidates. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, maybe the biggest thing, and I direct everyone to Dwayne McFarland, both Fantasy Football Hustle and his timeline, especially after games. He puts out a lot of great usage info, and if you want to pay for it, you can sign up for PFF. But one thing that McFarland pointed out was Nick Chubb ran a ton of routes, more than Kareem Hunt. I think at least that was in the first half. Maybe that evened out in the second half, but he didn't necessarily get a ton of targets, but it's nice to know that Chubb is actually now running more routes. These guys you could probably just group them in as like dual top 12 options. I've got him as top 15 with Chubb around, I think, RB6. Excuse me, again, allergies. And Kareem Hunt, I think, is around maybe like RB 14 or so. I'll look that up while we're chatting here and circle back to it. But on to the next game, Los Angeles Rams at Indianapolis Colts. So this one's great, frankly. I know that it seems like this is, well, actually, we'll get to, okay, so on the LA Rams side of things, Stafford, he looks great. I think that the LA Rams are going to be a high-flying offense all season, and I'm really excited to see that the things that Sean McVay unveils as the season progresses. His go-to guy, Stafford is a quarterback 1 this week, like no brainer, don't fear. Indianapolis Colts, they run a very good try-hard defense, but yeah, the Rams are going to be able to handle it. Cooper Kupp was his go-to guy. Cooper Kupp is a wide receiver 1 this week, and I'm eating crow on this one. I had him as a flex play. That was totally wrong. I thought that maybe Goff, and the way that he likes to keep it short in the passing game, would expose him as maybe being the lesser receiver to Robert Woods. That's not the case. They're both elite wide receivers in the NFL. Cooper Kupp, top 12 play. Robert Woods, I think he stays as a mid to high wide receiver 2 right now. He didn't impress too much in the box score, but we know how good Robert Woods is. So if anybody is like afraid of him or souring on him, it might be worth your while to fire off a trade offer to see what you could get for him. Circling back to the Browns thing, Kareem Hunt is the running back 16 this week, but that's more just because of a log jam at the top. I think he can totally finish in the top 12. You just have a really great running back 2 on your hands if that's where you're starting him. Tyler Higbee, with Gerald Everett out of the picture, Tyler Higbee looks like he could actually break out as not necessarily an elite tight end like Travis Kelce, but a guy who is actually a weekly difference maker at the position in your fantasy lineup. You should be excited if you have him. He's a mid to high tight end 1. The other 2 guys, Desean Jackson, Van Jefferson. It appears as though Van Jefferson is sharing a downfield role with Desean Jackson, not Tutu Atwell, who I don't know why they drafted. I would not have either of these guys in the starting lineup. You could choose to flex one in a very deep format. Sorry, we got a couple of dogs saying hello to me. But Jefferson, he is a lot slower than Desean Jackson. So I think that they're going to continue to run Desean Jackson really deep. But Jefferson obviously got it done. I don't know. Bench hold these guys is what I would recommend for week 2. Darrell Henderson dominated snaps, and it should not. I don't think that it will be. I don't think that Sony Michel is suddenly going to become relevant in week 2. They're going to continue to ease him in. Once he has a handle on it, his snap share might be exponentially increased. But until then, you've got a running back 2 in Darrell Henderson Jr. So like rock and roll. This is great. And bonus points here. Stud linebacker of the Indianapolis Colts, Darius Leonard, he's been dealing with an ankle injury and I believe an illness. Not great. If he plays, he's going to be less than 100%, but he might not even play. So Darrell Henderson, like to the moon as a running back too. Sony Michel, probably not starting him this week. Indianapolis Colts side of things. So Wentz did not embarrass himself. That is how I'm phrasing it. But the Rams defense, what they choose to do is they focus on their opponent's passing game and they allow the opponent to run the ball. Remember that whenever you're thinking about the whenever you're thinking about the LA Rams defense, a very good unit, they welcome the run. There are a couple of teams that do this. Kansas City Chiefs are another one. We will circle back to why that's super relevant here in week 2. But Carson Wentz, I think that he's at like a mid to high quarterback 2. I probably wouldn't roll with him in single QB leagues just because you got Jalen Ramsey, who's going to be dominating Michael Pittman or whoever it is that, the Colts decide to operate as their number 1 receiver. But on that note, yeah, I'm not starting Pittman, Pascal, or Paris Campbell. They're like unappealing flex plays at best. Michael Pittman Jr., that was a really big bummer seeing him fail against the Seattle Seahawks secondary, which is really not good. It's a problem that he did not make a big jump at the beginning of this year. I think that he still can break out, but he might just be a rotational guy. And that's a bummer. Running backs. Mo Alley Cox, Shaq Doyle, that group. There's just too many guys. Don't start any of them outside of best ball, just like the Browns. When it comes to running backs. So again, the Rams like to welcome teams to run the football. And why is that? Because they want teams to run less efficient plays. Rushing plays are less efficient than passing plays. Well, they throw the ball a lot. The Rams, that is. So Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines are going to have massive days. And it was wild. The usage that Taylor got last week was wild. They were treating him as a dual threat. And whether or not he's a proficient running back, that's what I think NFL teams should do. You should just throw Derrick Henry the ball a bunch. It's a more efficient means of moving the chains. And they're NFL players. Like, they didn't get here by accident. Chuck it to lead running backs who are mostly, downhill bruisers until they show you that they absolutely cannot do this. So I love what they did. I think Taylor got like 6 targets, and one of them was on 3rd down in scoring position, like 3rd and goal. He didn't convert it, but that kind of trust, that's fantastic. We like to see that. And at worst, you got like 3 yards and, half point of a per reception there. So yeah, JT, he is I think I have him as the running back 6 this week. Running back 7. Yeah. The wheels up for Jonathan Taylor. Nyheim Hines, every week, running back 2. The team paid him. And there were some folks who were thinking that Marlon Mack was going to be in the rotation. They're not. He's not. The Achilles injury, you really can't come back from it. The big question was whether or not they were going to promote Jordan Wilkins to a number 3 running back role. And they didn't. They didn't do that. They ran a 2-back set, or a 1-2 punch with Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. So if you drafted either of these guys, you're super excited about it. Buffalo Bills at Miami Dolphins. They had Bills had a rough outing against the Steelers last week. That can happen. huge bummer. One thing that might have contributed to it was Brian Dable. He talked about this and he took responsibility for it. The team chose to run a few gadget plays kind of in crunch time. And maybe that he basically said, we're probably not going to go back to the trick plays. That was a little silly. What we do like to see is that they threw the ball on 63% of their first half early downs, which is just 1 percentage point lower than their season-long mark from last year. So, hey, team is still being run by an intelligent group of guys, Brian Dable and Sean McDermott. So, yeah, trust Josh Allen. Go back to the well with him. He is a top 5 quarterback this week and top 3, maybe. The Dolphins secondary is very, very good. So he may tuck and run more than we expect him to, which is going to be great. Stephon Diggs had a bad day in week 1, catching 9 of 14 targets for 69 yards. That is what an elite receiver does. They catch 9 passes on a bad day. Do not fear, top 5 wide receiver. Cole Beasley. This dude, we talked about it on the podcast on Monday of this week. Cole Beasley is an absolute beast. And if you don't like what's on his Twitter timeline, then don't look at it. But when a guy is getting 13 targets from Josh Allen, you need to rethink your process if you're fading him. He is a flex this week, but he could finish. He could easily finish inside the top 24 at the position. Jacoby Myers had a pretty fine line. I mean, in the yardage column last week against the Dolphins, caught 6 of 9 targets for 44 yards. Beasley can do a little bit more in the yardage department, but 9 targets for Jacoby Myers. If he is able to run freely against the Miami Dolphins secondary, then Cole Beasley absolutely can. Just a quick note on next gen stats, just looking at the average intended air yards of these two players, Cole Beasley and Jacoby Myers. I think they were only separated by 2 guys. So Beasley 5.7 average intended air yards per target, and Myers is 6.4. They're used very similarly. So I think Beasley can build on the 6.4 44 line that Jacoby Myers produced in week 1. Emmanuel Sanders and Gabriel Davis. Okay, Emmanuel Sanders got the higher snap count. Gabriel Davis scored the touchdown. Sanders might have had a touchdown as well. No, it was 4 of 8 for 52 yards. Sanders, I think he won the number 3 job. This group, though, I think they continue to run a really, really high 4 wide receiver set. So Gabe Davis might still be viable in this offense just because of how many receivers they're running on the field. But I am just checking to see if there are any last second updates to the injury report. So Emmanuel Sanders listed foot and veteran rest, participated in full on Wednesday, and then was a DNP on Thursday. Usually those marks are flipped, so pay attention to that. If he sits, now Gabe Davis was a DNP on Wednesday because of an ankle, and then limited participant on Thursday. So if Emmanuel Sanders sits, then Gabe Davis is like a high flying flex play because he's going to get those downfield looks. We love that. But either of these guys are just like mid to low flexes this week in a tough matchup. Dawson Knox, very efficient. I think he caught all 4 of his targets, but he's only getting 4, so don't start him. Running backs, Matt Breida totally flopped in his audition to replace Zach Moss. Devin Singletary didn't do a whole lot either. I don't really like either of these guys. Singletary and Moss, you could flex either one of them in some sort of like 0 RB build, but I'm not recommending that you start any of them. Just double checking where I have them here in the ranks. So Singletary is a running back 40, and I've got Zach Moss as a running back 58 for context. Miami Dolphins, Tua, this is tough. His offensive line is really, really bad. They called plays really well. They're still doing the high volume first half early down passing, but with the line being so rough and Will Fuller just now being announced as out again due to a personal matter, and we don't know when he's going to return. Brian Flores was non-committal when he was asked at one point, might he return in the season? And Brian Flores couldn't give us an answer. Now, maybe that's just the coach playing coy, but that could mean something serious is going on with Will Fuller. And yeah, we have no idea when he's returning. I would still hold him on the bench, but this is a problem. Fortunately, Fuller's ADP was not high, so you shouldn't be relying on him. But if you were counting on him to come in as an impact flex play, as I was this week, it's a real bummer. What that does, though, is it elevates Devontae Parker up into the probably like wide receiver 25, 24 range. He played fairly well last week. Actually, Waddle should probably be top 25, top 24-ish and Devontae Parker probably closer to wide receiver 30. The Buffalo Bills defense is very good, but volume and kind of lacking interior coverage, I guess, in the Buffalo Bills secondary. I think that Waddle can still get it done. Parker will have to do battle with Tre'Davious White. So yeah, okay. Flex Parker if you please. Waddle though, I think he can still get it done as like a borderline wide receiver 2/3. He is assertively the slot receiver. Mike Gesicki lost that battle, and yeah, I know that Gesicki has the tight end designation, but he was not that. He was their slot receiver, and he lost that battle to Jalen Waddle. End of story. Gesicki, he's a tight end too, at best. This backfield is huge friggin' bummer, and I tried to warn y'all about it beforehand. Gaskin only took 53.7% of the snaps. Salvon Ahmed was 29.6, and Malcolm Brown was 20.4. It's a three-headed backfield. We do not like three-headed backfields. Najee Harris was stonewalled by this group, and the Bills' run defense, it's okay. It is not great, but if Najee Harris, operating on 100% of the team snaps last week, could not get the job done, he had like 50 hearts. Myles Gaskin isn't going to do it. I think Gaskin is a low-end flex play. I probably got him ranked. I'm double checking here. I've got him as a running back 32, and even that feels kind of rich. I might drop him down a little bit, maybe to the 38. I'm not starting Salvon Ahmed or Malcolm Brown. New England Patriots at New York Jets. Mack Jones played really well. Completion percentage over expectation mark of 4.9%. That's great for a rookie. That was 11th best in the league, and that was against the Dolphins defense, who are really good. Their secondary is really good. So, clap of the hand for Mack Jones. I think that Mack Jones is actually up for starting consideration in single QB leagues. I don't think that he can get past like the quarterback 10 spot, but should he finish between quarterback 10 and quarterback 14, I would not at all be surprised. The Jets defense is really bad, and they're missing starting safety LaMarcus Joyner. He went on injured reserve this week with a torn triceps injury. So that bodes really well for Nelson Agholor, who just killed it in the downfield role last week. If he's a free agent, you should go pick him up. 12.9 targeted air yards, intended air yards per target. Yeah, I think Agholor is like totally on the flex radar. Start him if you got him. Jacoby Myers, kind of the same thing. I think it's probably likely that he scores less than Nelson Agholor, but in a full point PPR setting, you could totally flex Jacoby Myers. Johnny Smith, Hunter Henry, both played very well. I believe they went a perfect, 8 for 8 receptions on their combined targets. Neither one is a recommended start right now. You could do it given the matchup though, especially with Joyner being out. Safety coverage on tight ends, like that's going to be a factor there. So you could start one of these guys if you were really desperate in a tight end one league. I would totally consider them in tight end premium or a league where you have two tight ends in your starting lineup. They're probably best held on the bench though. As for the running backs, Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, both of them got run, both of them fumbled. Harris really crushed it though. 23 carries for 100 yards and caught 2 of 3 targets for 17 yards. Some folks are under the impression that Bill Belichick likes to bench players and is really aggressive when they make mistakes. That can happen, but my observations, and Bill Belichick is a coach that I followed for a really long time. He has this quote where he talks about how it's the coach's job to know what a player can and can't do, and a coach should never ask a player to do something that he's not prepared to do. Applying that kind of to this context, Belichick, I've seen him when like Sony Michel has fumbled. He pulls him off to the side, he pats him on the back, and he tells him it's going to be okay, and he puts him back in. Some people might fade Damien Harris. I'm not going to do that. I think he's going to show full trust in Harris, and Harris is going to stay as a really solid running back too this week. Ramondre Stevenson, I think he's just, it's the third running back in the rotation. James White, he's a full point PPR flex starter. He was great last week. He led the team in receptions and had the second most receiving yards. Like start James White as a flex play, full point PPR formats. Damian Harris across all formats is a running back too. Ramondre Stevenson just a bench stash because of the presence of the other two guys. I think that he's a totally fine running back. Not an indictment of his abilities. New York Jets, Zach Wilson played really well. He weirdly didn't run at all last week, but he still finished as the quarterback 16. Unfortunately, I'm dropping him to a mid to low quarterback 2 this week because Bill Belichick is very, very good at confusing rookie quarterbacks. I think that this will be a really tough outing for Wilson, and I'm not looking to start him probably even in 2 quarterback leagues, maybe in 2 quarterback leagues, definitely not in single QB leagues. Now that said, Corey Davis, dude was an absolute beast. He is the end all be all of Jets receivers right now. Caught 5 of 7 passes for 97 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wilson just looked his way. I think he's going to do that again this week. Now, Belichick is going to roll coverage over to Corey Davis, but 1, volume really, really matters. And 2, well, I guess on the principle of volume mattering, this group, I'm just going to read this straight from the rundown. The Jets finished with the 3rd highest rate, 40% of 12 personnel usage last week. That's 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers. What that means is that this passing tree, as we thought it would be, is massively reduced. It's massively confined to a couple of players. When you have this high of a 2 tight end set, the receivers who do get to stay on the field for these 2 wide receiver groupings are going to get a lot of work. And so Corey Davis, you just trust him because he's never going to leave the friggin' field. Yeah, he was a wide receiver 5 last week, you guys. Like, just trust Corey Davis. He's a top 15 player every single week. Elijah Moore, screaming buy low right now. Left 70 yards on the field. He finished with like -3 yards, but let's see here. So he had a long drop, I think that was 50 or so yards, and then he had a 22-yard catch negated by penalty. If he went out there and caught a few balls and had like 80 yards on his day, people would be targeting him right now and saying, wow, that was really promising performance. But those 2 things happened, and now people might have cut him. Look for Elijah Moore. If Elijah Moore is free, you need to go add him immediately. He's a starting candidate in multi-flex full point PPR formats this week. Because of the Pats, I don't recommend starting him, but you really need to roster him. Braxton Barrios, he went out there. He got a lot of targets because Jamison Crowder was out, but Jamison Crowder, I think, is going to give it a go this week. I've not checked on his status, but last I saw, he was trending towards playing. So yeah, probably not touching either of these guys because the other 2 are just beasts, and they get more work. Avoid this group. They're running a 3 tight end rotation. Don't start Tyler Kroft, Ryan Griffin, or Trevon Wesco. Running backs. This is a tough pill to swallow. I was not terribly high on Michael Carter. I was high on Ty Johnson, but they ran out there and they gave Tevin Coleman 9 carries, and he fiddled around for 27 yards. If you like the Big Lebowski, go read this section. There's a little Easter egg in there for you. But yeah, Tevin Coleman, you cannot start him. He is terrible. He is old. It's a bummer. He used to be great, and I loved watching him, but you cannot start him. Ty Johnson and Michael Carter are just bench stashes, but if they are burning a hole in your bench and you see someone that you need to add, then go do it. Drop them. San Francisco 49ers at Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, so Kyle Shanahan is a jerk, but when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo, the dude fumbled it on the first play of the game, and I don't know why they still have him in there. This was really bad process. You accepted the risks of Trey Lance when you drafted him, and now you're handicapping yourself via the salary cap, and because you're playing such soft defenses, you're making it difficult to justify putting Trey Lance in. Anyway, Trey Lance in, he came in through 1 pass. It was a 5-yard touchdown to, guess who? Trent Sherfield. What does this mean for Jimmy Garoppolo? He's a quarterback too. Like, Philadelphia Eagles defense played really well. So Garoppolo is like a mid to low quarterback too. I'm not starting him in single quarterback leagues. I am still holding Trey Lance. But yeah, Shanahan, there are some coaches who are very, very, very good play callers, as he is, but they don't know how to manage a team. And he is kind of starting to look like that. So the first, inactive was Brandon Ayuk. And I know that he was active for the game. He was returning punts, and he, I think, ran like 1 route or whatever in the second half. Shanahan is trying to say that this is not a punitive result. But we're just going to lump all this stuff in to try to break down what happened. So Brandon Ayuk didn't play at all in the first half. Trey Sermon was a surprise inactive moments before hour before the game, whatever. And we thought that he was running as like the 1B at worst in the San Francisco 49ers backfield. And yeah, any 49ers beat reporter who did not get a whiff of either of these stories, what are you doing? Do your jobs better. So Kyle Shanahan has a history of drafting guys that he really likes, that kind of where he tells the scouting department what it is they're going to do. A couple names: Joe Williams and Dante Pettis. Pettis looked great last year towards the end, or excuse me, at the end of his rookie season. He looked good. Brandon Ayuk crushed it last year at the end of his rookie season. I mean, his second half of his rookie season, he was a beast. I don't know if Shanahan just picks a guy that he likes and he ignores, I don't know, character issues. Maybe that's in play here. Maybe Kyle Shanahan just sours on guys that he picks. You know, maybe they don't show him enough. They don't stroke the ego. I don't know what's going on, but he takes really drastic punitive actions in a public forum, and we don't know how this is going to play out. So right now, I am saying you cannot start Brandon Ayuk. You can start Deebo Samuel, who was an absolute monster. He caught 12 of 9 passes for 189 yards and a touchdown. He's 59. He had 59.24% of San Francisco's air yards. That's absurd. So he's like a locked-in wide receiver too. He has had some injury issues, but if you're going to get this kind of stuff, like you need, I mean, if he goes out there and he plays like he did again, then he's going to finish as like a top 5 wide receiver. He was, I think whatever. He's a top 5 fantasy wide receiver last week. Absolute stud. Yeah, he finishes a wide receiver 3. Deebo Samuel, there's no questions about his talent, and if he's going to get this kind of usage, you could start him as I would conservatively start him as a wide receiver 2. Okay, moving on from this one. As for the backfield, Trey Sermon, we don't know what's going to happen. Raheem Mostert, he damaged his knee. I think it was a meniscal tear, initially reported as like cartilage damage or something, which is not a diagnosis per medical professionals. And Elijah Mitchell balled the hell out once Raheem Mostert got injured. Michael Hasty was in there. He took some passing game work, but it's tough to know what the intent for Elijah Mitchell was. Like maybe he was supposed to, I don't know, play special teams and catch some passes and rotate with Michael Hasty. But they gave him lead back duty. So I have Elijah Mitchell as a running back 2 this week. It would be crazy of Kyle Shanahan to not reward that kind of a performance. And I know I just got through detailing how Shanahan can kind of galaxy brain himself into some strange situations, but at a certain point, team morale has to be taken into account when you're making these decisions. So for me, Eli Mitchell is a running back 2. Hasty should be on your roster if he's a free agent. Put him on the bench. And Trey Sermon, I think you could start him as a flex play. Understand he may score 0 points, depending on where Kyle Shanahan is with him, if he's done punishing him or not. And I know he said it's not a punishment and that he somehow went from looking like a phenomenal running back in preseason action to like losing the job in practice to these guys. And hey, Eli Mitchell did look great, but something's up. Anyway, yeah, Eli Mitchell, running back 2, Trey Sermon, flex play. Jermichael Hasty could flex him, but I would keep him on the bench. George Kittle, steady Eddie, 4 of 5 targets for 78 yards. He's a top 5 fantasy tight end week in and week out. Trent Sherfield, the dude looked great in the preseason action as a downfield receiver, and as soon as Trey Lance came on the field, he looked his way. That's who he chucked that like 80-yard touchdown to in preseason week 2, I think. Sherfield's worth an ad. You probably want to keep him on the bench, but he's absolutely worth an ad. And if Trey Lance starts, then he should be Trent Sherfield should be in DFS lineups or super deep redraft leagues. Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts. Hurts looks like he took some serious steps in the passing department. 264 total passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, ran for an additional 62 yards. Atlanta might be the worst defense in the league. So Jalen Hurts, I think you probably got to rank him as like, I don't know, between quarterback 4 and quarterback 6 this week. He's going to eviscerate the Falcons. Start him if you have him. Davonte Smith, dude, first catch of his young NFL career. He was an 18-yard touchdown, and props to Zach Ertz for getting him open on the rub route. Devontae Smith, I think he's a wide receiver 2. I had him as a flex play last week. I think he's just locked in wide receiver 2. He's getting excellent usage. Trust Devontae Smith. Great story here. Jalen Reagor, he did score. I saw that. He got loose on a screen pass. I am not going to bank on him breaking through the defense and just doing getting a foot race to be productive week in and week out. He's been really, really bad. If you want to speculatively add him and bench him, okay, I'll accept that. I would not start this guy. Dallas Goedert was trending toward tight end 1 usage this week while Zach Ertz was on the injury report, but now Zach Ertz hamstring is trending towards playing. So we're back in the tight end 2 doldrums for Goddard. If Ertz does not play, Goddard vaults to a tight end 6 maybe, or excuse me, a mid-range tight end one. Running backs, Boston Scott is the odd man out. I don't think he saw any snaps. Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. This was really promising. So the concern was that Miles Sanders was going to be a rush-only back while Kenneth Gainwell operated as the pass catcher. Instead, both guys got rushing and receiving work, and that's awesome. So, excuse me, Miles Sanders, you can just start him as a running back too, who has a really good chance of finishing as a running back one. Again, Atlanta's defense is terrible. Sanders expects something in the range of, so he had 15 carries last week and caught 4 of 5 targets. So a 19 touch intended workload, that's fantastic. If he gets that against the Falcons again this week, then he's probably a running back one. Kenneth Gainwell, 9 carries for 37 yards and a touchdown, caught 2 of 3 targets for 6. That's great. You can flex Gainwell this week. He probably doesn't have a running back 2 ceiling, but I think he could totally return flex value. And if the game goes wild and they're just trampling the Falcons at the end of the game, he could really put up some points. It's not good to bank on garbage time, but Gainwell could get it done. Raiders at Steelers. Derek Carr, he played fairly well last week in their upset of Baltimore. Steelers defense is no friggin' joke, and Baltimore was playing a little bit understaffed. I would not touch Derek Carr in a single quarterback league. You could start him in 2 QB leagues because his connection with Darren Waller is elite. But yeah, not a single quarterback option. Waller had 19 targets, which was the most in the NFL. Not at the tight end position, but at all positions. John Gruden then called him the best player he's ever coached. Waller is he will compete with Travis Kelce for the tight end 1 spot in a way that likely no one else will in the NFL. He is phenomenal, and you're starting him every week. And if you did something crazy and you got 2 tight ends on your roster, you can even flex Waller and start, if you got another tight end 1, like you could even start him at tight end. Don't fear doing that if the points align that way. Brian Edwards and Henry Ruggs did nothing for the majority of the game, and that's last week, and that's what'll happen again this week. So stash them on your bench if you please. Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake. Jacobs is extremely banged up. I think he's nursing ankle and toe injuries, and he got the job done via touchdowns, but he had very low yardage, and this is just a total disaster in this backfield. Drake is a flex option in full point PPR leagues, but that is it. Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, Ben Roethlisberger, negative 8.1% completion percentage above expectation last week. His arm does not have it anymore. Now, they could still get the job done with him via volume and via matchup. So like this week, I mean, you could put him in as a quarterback 1, but like if you were under the illusion that Ben Roethlisberger still has it, he emphatically does not. Again, being able to deliver the ball to this pass catching group though, and in the right matchup, I mean, you could put me in there and I might be able to complete a pass. Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Mike Tomlin is intent on running Juju Smith-Schuster out there on a ton of snaps. He had the team high at the wide receiver position, which is crazy given his bulky knee and the talent of Claypool and Deontay Johnson. But luckily, Roethlisberger chucked 10 targets, team high, towards Deontay Johnson. So, and Chase Claypool, he just didn't get the work. He's going to have to be really efficient. It's kind of a bummer that they're skewing the targets this way. I view all of these guys as flex options. This is a really, really, really soft matchup though. So like they could all finish as wide receiver 2s. Juju though, probably only getting there via full point PPR scoring formats. The tight ends, Eric Ebron and Pat Freiermuth are just bench people, and hold on to Pat Freiermuth in Dynasty and Adam if he's available though. Dude's going to be a beast one day. Najee Harris, he flopped, but he was on the field for 100% of the team's snaps. So in a matchup like this against a terrible, terrible, terrible Raiders front 7, you can go ahead and start Najee Harris, but he's only going to be a running back 2. Quick break for a sip of water. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, Najee Harris, the problem is the offensive line. Like he's going to get the work, he's going to get the snaps, but the offensive line is so bad. So he's a running back 2, which, hey, that's probably what you drafted him as. So that's okay. New Orleans Saints at Carolina Panthers. Jameis Winston, per Ian Hartitz, who is extremely sarcastic, so who knows if this is actually accurate. There have been 209 instances of a player throwing for 5 touchdowns in one game. 148 passing yards, what Winston did last week, is the lowest yardage sum. They shot out of the gates against the Packers last week, chucking it to Marquez Callaway, I think on like the first 2 plays from scrimmage. That looked like it was going to be really promising, but Winston, whose eyes now work because of LASIK and working with Sean Payton, don't forget, Tom Brady had the highest interception rate of his career last year per Tej Seth of PFF, who was fantastic. Go follow Tej. Brady, highest interception rate of his career last year in the Bruce Arians system. Maybe Arians really was coaxing interceptions out of Jameis Winston. This dude divvied the ball up to all of his receivers, which was great for him. Again, 148 yards, 5 touchdowns. He even carried it 6 times for 37 yards. But it's a bummer for Marquez Callaway, who is not going to just be a target hog, it looks like. But here's the thing, against the Carolina Panthers, who have a handful of good defenders and then a lot of bad ones, they can still get the job done. So Winston, he's a quarterback 1 this week. Maybe rank him in like the 7 or 8 area. Callaway, he is a flex play, but understand his floor is 0. I'm not going to bank on DeAndre Harris or Chris Hogan to score again. Harris is the returner, and he's got speed for days in the downfield role. He could get loose, so like maybe DFS option, but I'm not betting on Chris Hogan. The tight end situation is really interesting. Adam Troutman dominated snaps, but Juwan Johnson caught 3 of 3 targets for 21 yards and 2 touchdowns. Juwan Johnson has tight end and wide receiver eligibility on Yahoo, I think. So if you're in like a 6 receiver league or something, you might be able to put that to use. I think that people are going to chase the touchdowns from Johnson, who he's a good athlete, and he played really well this preseason. Troutman did have the usage though. So I think if you're looking to add one, it would be Troutman for me, but I understand if you want to bank on Sean Payton being enamored with Juwan Johnson's talent and think that he's going to end up emerging as more of a tight end receiving threat. I'm probably not starting either one excitedly, but Troutman would be the one, I think, if need be. It's a coin toss. Alvin Kamara. Okay, so Tony Jones, the backup, got some run last week, but a lot of it was in garbage time. So Kamara might actually be in like near Christian McCaffrey usage. And Kamara's always been a high efficiency guy where he gets, 18 touches and produces like a top 2 or 3 running back, but he might actually be getting that top 2 or 3 top 1 running back kind of workload this year. So if you drafted him, you may have the overall running back 1 on your team. And against the Carolina Panthers, he should obliterate this defense. Tony Jones, again, against the Panthers, you could flex him in a super, super deep league. Moving on to the Panthers. So Sam Darnold did not look great, but, in the Joe Brady offense where you throw the ball 68% of the time on first half early downs, tied for 5th most in the NFL, you can get the job done. One thing that's a big concern, I don't know how to feel about these guys in dynasty formats. Minute mark 58:33 of the PFF forecast episode that covered the game recaps. Matt Rule chose to punt from the opponent's 33, I think it was. That's unbelievably unacceptable. And when Joe Brady leaves for a head coaching gig, we should probably be concerned about the non-Christian McCaffrey Panthers players. But he's here this year, so celebrate them. View Sam Darnold as a mid to high quarterback 2 who could get into the quarterback 1 ranks. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Terrace Marshall. A lot of usage stuff to break down here. So Moore had 8 targets, which were the highest of the group, not the highest on the team, because I think McCaffrey led that category. And that's great. DJ Moore, his average intended air yards depth was in line with an X receiver. The usage he got was that of an X receiver. He was not really going on the interior. We think that from this game, DJ Moore is the wide receiver 1 here. They're not going to do the Robbie Anderson X receiver thing and make Moore run deep. So be very excited if you got DJ Moore. He's a wide receiver 2 this week. Robbie Anderson caught 1 of 3 targets for 57 yards and a touchdown. The Saints did bolster their secondary by adding Bradley Roby, who was inactive due to a suspension last week, but he is back this week. I think that Robbie Anderson can be a flex player, but understand he is he's, I think, purely a really good downfield receiver, which means that there are going to be some weeks where he gives you a low score just because of the nature of that role. But I'm not shying away from him here because I think that this could be a shootout. So flex him if you have him. Terrace Marshall, I don't think he did a whole lot. Let's see here. Caught 3, I believe, of 6 targets. Yes, 6 targets. 3 of 6 targets for 26 yards. He had a really high snap share. I think that this was a promising outing, similar to Elijah Moore, a really promising outing for the rookie. He is locked in as the full-time slot receiver. I would be excited about what Marshall gave you. I don't know if I would start him this week, but I would be really excited to have him on my team. You could start him in some sort of very, very deep multi-flex format, but not in like a standard redraft league. Christian McCaffrey and Chuba Hubbard. Hubbard is only a handcuff or running, like a pure backup running back. Christian McCaffrey dominated backfield snaps. He caught 9 of 9 targets for 89 yards. He's the overall running back 1 every single week. Denver Broncos at Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a great one for Teddy to make some noise here. Jacksonville Jaguars are god awful, and even the Houston Texans looked good. It would be great if Jerry Jeudy was not out with a high ankle injury, but he is. So Teddy, he's a great quarterback 2 option this week. They could just run the ball a lot, so that because of how weak the Jaguars defense is. So his ceiling is not that of like an elite quarterback 1, but he's a streaming option. What does the pass catching tree look like with Jerry Jeudy out 6 weeks, probably with a bad high ankle sprain? It looks like Noah Fant is the number 1 pass catcher here. So be excited if you have him. I think that he's in that Tyler Higbee tier where it's not quite elite, but it's really good. And he will make a difference in your box score, which is what you're looking for at the tight end position. Tim Patrick looked like he kind of emerged as the preferred target. It's really tough to know what's going on with Courtland Sutton, though. There's a lot of confusion from a video where it looked like he was limping this week in practice, but I think it was just the drill where he's supposed to make an exaggerated plant. If you want to go with Tim Patrick as a flex play, I understand. He might be a better bet than Courtland Sutton right now, but he's not a better player than Courtland Sutton. I think that I would be happy to have Tim Patrick on my roster in dynasty leagues. I would advertise them as flex at your own risk. KJ Hamler might be the guy to take over as the starting slot receiver in Judy's absence. And yeah, Jeudy last year ran a bunch on the perimeter, but he kicked inside, and I think he ran slot. He was in the slot on like 70% or more of the snaps in week 1 where he was on the field. So there's a hole to be filled here for Teddy's potential number 1 wide receiver target. So an add of Hamler to your roster would be great. It would be bold to start him this week, but he's got speed for days, so I get it. I don't think that Albert O is going to be a big time receiver, but he might have a red zone role. Don't start him outside of like tight end premium deep leagues. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. Sorry guys, allergies are just killing me. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. Melvin Gordon, I tried to tell you guys, incumbents do not get ousted by round 2 running backs right off the bat. And that comes from the school of Dwayne McFarland. Go back and listen to his podcast from the summer. I've already covered this extensively, but Melvin Gordon is here to stay at least for like the majority of the season. They were on the field 33 snaps apiece. Javonte Williams out-carried Melvin Gordon 14-1. Melvin Gordon out-targeted Williams 3-1. Of course, Gordon ripped off a 70-yard score, so a touchdown run, that is. So he's probably going to continue to get more work. He also registered the speediest ball carrier speed of any player in week 1, 21.52 miles per hour. So old man still got it. Both of these guys should be right around running back 24. I would excitedly start either one of them or both of them in the same lineup. This Jacksonville Jaguars defense, remember, gave up 138 yards from scrimmage and 3 touchdowns to Mark Ingram, Philip Lindsay, and David Johnson last week. You can totally start both of these guys in the same lineup in week 2. Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence. No one knows what the hell is going on with Urban Meyer. Reports came out that he is unhinged, and there are rumors that he might go to USC. When he was asked about it in a press conference, he did a bunch of weird stuff with his hands. So Think of that what you will. Trevor Lawrence, I think will get it done on counting stats. The Broncos defense is really good, so Lawrence should probably be more of like a back end quarterback one. He has so many targets to throw the ball to, so I don't think that he's going to tumble like well into the quarterback 2 ranks, even with Urban Meyer being an idiot. We'll see. I am starting him in single quarterback formats, though. DJ Chark, Marvin Jones, and Laviska Shenault. No idea how the usage is going to play out in this one. Chark saw 12 targets last week, only caught 3 of them. So are they going to continue to go to him, or are they going to look at that and go, what the hell? We can't keep throwing to this guy at that rate. I don't know. Probably worth a flex, but like very murky here. Marvin Jones would have kind of had a bummer of a day, 4 catches, 73 yards, had he not caught a 4-yard touchdown with 5 seconds left in the game last week. Again, 4 yards, 73, or four catches, 73 yards. That's not terrible, but you know, I thought this guy could be the wide receiver 1 there. He's fine though. Just like Chark, he's a flex option. Laviska Shenault, his box score was not terribly impressive, but he caught 7 of 10 balls and for like 52 yards, I think. And he even had a carry for 9 yards. He kind of got the ETN usage. So stay strong with all 3 of these guys as flex plays. The pecking order will shake out. We just don't know how it is right now. Denver notes on the Denver defense. Cornerback Ronald Darby was placed on injured reserve with a hamstring injury, and Bradley Chubb, defensive end, is battling an ankle injury. We have no idea what's going on, or I think he's recovering from an ankle injury from last year. We don't know what's going on there, or if he's going to play, or he's not going to be 100%. So I would flex any one of these 3 guys. If you were desperately in need of tight end help, James O'Shaughnessy should be on your radar. He is a 11-year veteran, but had the game of his friggin' life. He got 6 of 8 targets for 48 yards. He is not very good. We don't know if this is going to hold, but that kind of usage is fantasy relevant. So if you are desperate, you could start him. I don't recommend it. James Robinson, Carlos Hyde. Robinson got 47 snaps to Hyde's 25. Hyde got 9 carries while Robinson got 5. Hyde, of course, only took the ball for 44 total yards. Robinson went 25. Robinson, thankfully, retained primary receiving back duties, caught 3 of 6 for 29 yards. Hyde caught both of his for 14. It's a full-blown committee. I know that Robinson was out there probably for pass protecting purposes more than Hyde was, but like neither of these guys are anything other than a moderate flex play, with James Robinson being the preferable guy. But like James RB1 in the season is not back upon us. Don't forget, Carlos Hyde played at Ohio State under Urban Meyer, and that's why this is happening, and it's frustrating. Minnesota Vikings at Arizona Cardinals. Going to be a rough day at the office for Kirk Cousins. The Arizona Cardinals front 7 was very good last year, but they were very banged up, so they kind of got a bad reputation. They're really good, and I think that, against the Tennessee Titans last week, led to a league high 6 sacks for the Arizona Cardinals front. I would totally stream the Cardinals defense this week. Kirk Cousins, no more than like a moderate quarterback too. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. Thielen showed everybody that he's still here, just like he did last year. He's still a phenomenal route runner, even if he's getting a little bit older. 9 catches, 10 targets, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jefferson, I think, is still the wide receiver 1 here, and he had a decent day. 5 catches, 71 yards on 9 targets. But Thielen is a wide receiver 2. Jefferson, rank him as like wide receiver 10, rank Thielen as wide receiver, 20. Like very safe plays still. Don't be afraid of Justin Jefferson after last week, and don't get overly excited on Thielen. He's a wide receiver 2. KJ Osborne, go ahead and add him in full point PPR leagues. They cranked up their 3 wide receiver usage, I think higher than it's been in each of the last 3 years. I think it was at 44%. So we dig that. I don't know if it will hold because they've been a 2 tight end heavy team, but they might just not like Tyler Conklin, and they might not like Chris Herndon, because who does? While Irv Smith is on injured reserve, they might just go 3 wide more than they ever have. So grab Osborne if you're in like need of a full point PPR flex play. Dalvin Cook, he's going to crush it because that's what he does. Alexander Madison, pure backup. Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray is changing the game. He is 5'10", but he is still dominating his opponents. The Vikings defensive front might be without Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, and Everson Griffin due to injuries. So expect Murray to run for like 100 yards. He's in contention for overall quarterback one honors this week. Of course, DeAndre Hopkins, top 5 wide receiver play, could outscore the entire wide receiver field. Christian Kirk finally became what they drafted him to be 3 or 4.
Be reduced. Rondale Moore started having more audio issues, guys. There's not
the airplane. Rondale Moore is reduced to just a flex play, but it is a great matchup for him to get the job done. AJ Green, stop it. Chase Edmonds and James Conner. Edmonds was the clear lead back, and James Conner got like 8 of his carries in garbage time last week. So don't think that James Conner is going to be some kind of big fantasy contributor right now. Chase Edmonds is still the lead guy. I'm not putting him any higher than running back 3 though, because he is kind of bad. Atlanta Falcons at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is going to be a brutal buy low week for the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons line is a huge problem, and the Tampa Bay Bucks could lead the league in snaps this week against Matt Ryan. I would not be starting Matt Ryan. He's a mid to low quarterback too. Calvin Ridley, you still have to start him, or I think you should start him, because he's a wide receiver 1. He's one of the best route runners in the league, and I think that guys like this can only drop so far. He had a tough out. I mean, he started the game last week crushing it. He did a great job early in the game, but it just kind of fell apart. I think they're going to go right back to him and try to get him back on track. He's still at worst, a high-end wide receiver 2 this week. Kyle Pitts, box score was not a huge success. He caught 4 of his 8 targets. 8 targets, team leading. He tied Calvin Ridley for the team lead in targets. For a meh kind of yardage total. But here's the thing: he saw elite usage, you guys. He had 8 targets. He lined up in the slot 19 times. That was more than Russell Gage, the supposed slot receiver, did. He only took 8 snaps as an inline tight end. I would be buying Kyle Pitts. And I direct everyone again, Dwayne McFarland's usage is just so friggin' fantastic. And the Fantasy Football Hustle episode earlier this week goes in depth on the kind of usage he got. Spoiler alert, it's elite. Kyle Pitts is still an elite tight end, and I would be trying to trade for him everywhere that I don't have him. Russell Gage, no, he's not a thing. And I'm glad we have the answer to that, because he was not going to be a thing. Mike Davis, per Hayden Winks, he got, I think, 80% of his yardage last week after contact, which is significantly higher than the league average. And that's because of the offensive line. And unfortunately, I don't think that's going to change this week. He's a flex play. Cordero Patterson, you can add him if you please. I don't think that he's going to be terribly successful. Mike Davis, so you can flex him, but he's not going to have a breakout game this week. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Brady, he's playing one of the NFL's worst defenses this week in the Atlanta Falcons. So, I would be extremely excited about starting him. He's somewhere between the quarterback 3 and quarterback 6 this week. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, and tight end Rob Gronkowski should all be in your starting lineups. Mike Evans, he was the odd man out last week, but both Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown were top 5 wide receivers in half-point PPR scoring. I think that more often than not, and especially in matchups like this, all 3 can be wide receiver 2s, and some are going to be wide receiver 1s. Like 2 of them finishing there would not be a surprise. Rob Gronkowski was the overall tight end 1. He looks great. He looks really healthy. He's an elite tight end this season. Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson, Jalen Darden, and Jalen Mickens could all be rostered in redraft leagues. And I think all of them should be in various DFS lineups. Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, Gio Bernard, not the week to start Bernard. Atlanta Falcons are not going to put up much of a fight offensively. And so I don't think that Bernard's pass catching ability is going to be called upon. Bruce Arians early in the week said that Ronald Jones would start. Then he later said, they're all starters. If I'm banking on one of Jones or Fournette, it's going to be Jones. I don't like this though, but it's a really good matchup. Dallas Cowboys and Los Angeles Chargers, my bet to be the highest scoring game of the week. Dak Prescott was a beast against the Tampa Bay defense. The Chargers are still really good, but if you can get it done against the Bucs, then you can get it done against the Chargers too. And offenses interacting with each other matter more than defenses do. So Dak Prescott, top 5 quarterback. Don't even overthink it. He will be, and we'll touch on this for the Chargers, but he will also be hugely helped with the fact that the Cowboys are going to be out without their top two pass rushers. So the Chargers are just going to be scoring a ton of points, which is going to make Dak throw more and more and more. We love this. Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb are wide receiver ones this week. End of story. Michael Gallup is out 3 to 5 weeks with an ankle injury. So yeah, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, they could finish inside the top 6 together. It's wild. Cedric Wilson Jr., next man up. He's going to be a slot receiver. He will operate, I think, as the downfield role guy. He is flex worthy in deep formats. He should be rostered everywhere. Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz cancel each other out. Don't start them. Ezekiel Elliott should get back on track this week. They're going to give him the workload that he needs to succeed. I think I've got him as like the running back 10. Tony Pollard, he looked good when he was on the field, but they're not. It will never be Tony Pollard's backfield as long as Ezekiel Elliott is there. Ezekiel Elliott, as I said, is the running back 10 this week. Los Angeles Chargers, Justin Herbert. In the piece, I linked to a clip. Go look at Hayden Wink's timeline. The Chargers offensive line is looking like it might be the best in the league. They stonewalled the Washington football team's defensive front. That is extremely impressive. So Herbert, he's going to have all day in the pocket, and he can rush if he wants to. I think he'll compete with Dak Prescott for overall quarterback 1 honors this week. It's to the moon for the Chargers. Keenan Allen, easy peasy wide receiver 1. Mike Williams, I think Mike Williams, he's a mid to high wide receiver 2 who could finish as like the wide receiver 3. His downfield role, he's getting more than just being a downfield receiver, but that's still where he's getting his looks. So it brings a little bit of variance, but like I would excitedly start Mike Williams wherever I have him. Jalen Guyton, Josh Palmer, they are rotating as the number 3 and 4 wide receiver in the formation. I would start them in DFS lineups. You could roll them out there in very, very deep leagues because of the scoring potential in this one. And I would prioritize Jalen Guyton a little bit over Josh Palmer, just given week 1 usage. Jared Cook, Donald Parham, both of them could be rostered. You could start Jared Cook. He is the tight end 1 for now, but I think Parham is the guy who, 1, should be rostered in Dynasty and who has a better chance to be making a lot of noise by the end of the year. Austin Eckler, a beast of a running back 1 this week. Larry Roundtree got more running back 2 usage than Justin Jackson did. And that's a bummer because Larry Roundtree is athletic as an offensive lineman. I'm not kidding. Go look up his workout. You compare it to offensive lineman. He is an offensive lineman, but he's built like a running back. I don't know why they're giving that guy touches. Justin Jackson, great player, great dude. I'm rooting for him. I don't think he's quite startable in this one. And Larry Roundtree is maybe a flex play. Tennessee Titans at Seattle Seahawks. This one is entirely due to the flop of the Tennessee Titans is entirely due to Todd Downing, new offensive coordinator. No one else. There's not anyone else. Well, and Mike Vrabel. So last season, they threw the ball on 55% of their dropbacks. They threw the ball via play action on 55% of their dropbacks. It has to be league high. 30% is a lot. While Todd Downing had a single season as a Las Vegas Raiders offensive coordinator in 2017, he threw the ball in play action, I think 14%. He dropped way the hell back down to the league low in play action passing. He threw it twice via play action. That is inexcusable. He should be fired after this week. And Vrabel allowing him to do that is completely, I am apoplectic over it. As a result, we cannot trust Ryan Tannehill in single QB formats. He is only eligible in 2 QB/Superflex leagues. AJ Brown is now a back-end wide receiver 1, not an elite wide receiver 1. Julio Jones is a back-end wide receiver 2. I hated that I just had to say that. Derrick Henry is a running back 1. The Seattle Seahawks defense is deep, but it is not very talented. It's not elite. Henry should get back to it. No one else is fantasy viable on that roster right now. Seattle Seahawks QB Russell Wilson. The Waldron scheme got off to a great start. They didn't run as many plays as I thought they would, but it was extremely efficient. I love that. They threw the ball to Russell Wilson, elite wide receiver 1. They threw the ball to wide receivers on 63% of their first half early down pass attempts. That is 1% lower than the Rams this week. So you can see that there's a very clear correlation between these two offenses. Shane Waldron has brought the Los Angeles Rams offense, or at least key components of it, to the Seahawks. What does that mean for DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett? They're both wide receiver 1s this week. It's a fantastic matchup. The Tennessee Titans defense is god awful. Metcalf should be considered a top 3 play at the position, and Tyler Lockett at worst is a wide receiver overall wide receiver 15. I think he's a wide receiver 1 though. Everett and Will Dissly. This was unfortunate that they ran so many snaps for Will Dissly, but Everett was extremely efficient with his 2 targets. He caught them both and scored a touchdown. You can keep Everett in there, especially given the matchup. Unless he starts to outsnap Dissly significantly, though, you might want to try to sell high on him, and I hated saying that too. Chris Carson now has rushing work like all to himself. Rashad Penny, who I was not high on, left last week's game with a calf injury, and he's expected to be out for a few weeks. Carson, I have him as a running back 14. I think running back 8 is like well within his range of outcomes, though, against the Tennessee Titans. Alex Collins would be the primary rushing back if Chris Carson were to miss time, and DJ Dallas would take on the passing game work, as he will in this one in a rotational capacity. I'm not starting either of those 2 guys outside of like freaky, weird, deep formats, and maybe best ball. Sunday Night Football, Kansas City Chiefs at Baltimore Ravens. Patrick Mahomes is a top 3 quarterback every week. You don't need me to tell you that. This week is especially delicious, though, because the Ravens tragically now have another injury at cornerback. So they're just going to pick these guys apart, and Tyreek Hill, he'll be in contention with, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, to finish as the overall wide receiver 1. He had almost 200 yards receiving last week, and I think that he could do that again. Again, they're missing Marcus Peters, and I'm blanking on the other man's name who they injured, or who suffered an injury in practice this week, but it's really not good for the Ravens. Travis Kelce will compete with Darren Waller for tight end 1 honors this week. The tight end, the safety position in Baltimore has not really been solved since the bizarre departure of Earl Thomas and Eric Weddle, due to retirement with one and bizarre behavior with the other. So Kelce should just beat the hell out of these guys. He could outscore Tyreek Hill, but I think Hill will just rip off like multiple 30-yard gains. 100 yards and multiple touchdowns for each of these guys is totally within their range of outcomes. Mecole Hardman and Demarcus Robinson, due to the injuries, are DFS considerations. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think that his physical limitations will continue to limit him. He's very good, and he's going to do everything that the Kansas City Chiefs ask of him, but he is below, his speed is totally lacking. His workloads keep him in the top 15 conversation, though. So don't be upset if you have him. Like, he will do what you drafted him as, which was a high-end running back too. But I don't think that he is I don't think you should expect a seasonal running back 8 or higher finish from him. Baltimore Ravens. The biggest thing here is that the Kansas City Chiefs, as we mentioned before, they like to allow opposing teams to run the ball against them, so they can just throw and score a bunch of points while the opponent inefficiently runs at them. Now, the Ravens can run the ball at an extremely efficient rate. So Lamar Jackson, he's a top 5 quarterback. He could easily go over 100 rushing yards. It'll be a fun one for Lamar. Not so much in the passing department, though, because I'm going to double check to see if there is any last-second injury information on Marquise Brown right now, who is dealing with an injury. What this means for Mark Andrews, though, is Mark Andrews, he had 55 snaps last week. That's the second highest total of his career. The first highest was 56. Andrews has always been a guy that they rotated because he has diabetes, and so it just puts him at higher risk of like dehydration and getting hurt due to just fatigue, I guess. But he was in there for 55 snaps, so like that's phenomenal. That's good. That's excellent usage, and we should all be really, really happy about that. Marquise Brown, ankle injury, did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. I don't know what the Friday status is, but unless he is a full participant, the range of outcomes for players who go DNP, and then limited on Friday are not great. Worryingly, Ronnie Stanley, left tackle, also DNP. Chris Westry, that was the quarterback who is also injured. Knee injury, registered back-to-back DNPs. We'll have to see how that one plays out, but it's not looking good. So for the passing game here, Mark Andrews, top 5 tight end 1, who could compete with the big guys this week, because I think he could see like 12 targets. if Marquise Brown is out, like I think he will be, Sammy Watkins is high-end flex play, and he could absolutely finish as a wide receiver too. I think he's kind of washed, but again, volume is king, and if he's the number 2 passing game option here, then he could get it done. Running backs Tyson Williams and Latavius Murray. Tip of the cap to Matt Waldman of the RSP. Go check out his timeline. I've linked to it in the piece, but he did a really nice job breaking down the Ravens film this week. What he saw from Tyson Williams was a little bit of an inability or an unwillingness, I think, to finish his runs. So Williams, by his counting stats, he did really well. And I think I think that he'll remain the running back 1 in this scheme, but they did put Latavius Murray out there, and they gave him 10 carries, I think, to Tyson Williams 9 in the second half of last week's game. Now, Williams, he did way more with it, like 65 yards in the score, I think it was, and Murray, 30 yards or whatever in a touchdown. I think that Williams will continue to outproduce Latavius Murray as the lead back here, but Latavius Murray is going to take on the Gus Edwards role, I think. And so what we're looking at here against Kansas City could be, 13 carries, 13 touches, maybe 80 yards of a score. Like, he could get the job done here. So Murray, Tyson Williams, sticking with him as a flex play. Latavius Murray also, feel free to start him as a flex play too. And that's it. All of a sudden, we're all done, guys. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. I hope my allergies, my throat clearing wasn't too much of an issue. This was an absolute blast. I love doing this. We're going to be back with more great stuff next week. Hit me up on Twitter at ginger__Nick, spelled NIC. Good luck this weekend.